Welcome back to News Talk. Joining us now here in segment 2 of the program for you today, Karl Racine. He is the Attorney General in the District of Columbia, the first person to hold the post since it became an elected rather than an appointed position a couple years ago. Karl Racine, you're with us on a regular basis, and it's always great having you here. Fun to talk about the law. Always. I don't know if you were eavesdropping, able to hear any of the first conversation that we had, but a big local case with national implications before the Supreme Court now, the 8 justices instead of the 9, as Bob McDonnell tries to stay out of prison, his wife as well, and politicians everywhere wondering, could an appropriate act, and this is not to opine on what Mr. McDonnell did, but I know a lot of politicians who think of themselves as honest, who help their constituents, whether they be individuals or employers. You know, I help my constituents, and sometimes I get a campaign contribution, or I go to a lunch and they give me a chicken sandwich. I don't want to end up in prison. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think, first of all, Bruce, it's great to be here and good to see you. The McDonnell case does raise very, very interesting and complex issues. I mean, the case at one level seems to be about gift laws and what gift laws should preclude, and at another level, it strays into bribery and quid pro quo. I think one of your commentators said it best when he suggested that there seemed to be a lot of quid, but not so much quo. And that goes to your point. Elected officials are often called upon to do things for their constituents, and indeed some of those constituents may be contributors. It certainly isn't inappropriate to put a meeting together or otherwise guide a constituent to a process that would be dealt with on the merits.
And I'll use an example that I've used before because I think it takes us beyond what was arguably Bob McDonnell's very careful hewing to the proper side of the line. Let's say I'm a state senator, I have an employer in my district, and they've got a warehouse with a transportation issue, getting trucks on and off the highway. They come to me, they say, this is, you know, our client's ice cream is melting because we're sitting in traffic. Well, I'm going to pick up the phone, I'm calling the Department of Transportation, I'm going to help them if I can, and if they want to say to me at election time, you know what, we like what that guy's doing, we're going to give him money, is this going to come back and bite me?
Well, I think the election in Maryland just played out in a way in which at least one of the victors, I guess, in the race for the Senate, was widely regarded as being extremely constituent responsive. And it appears as though that was a major point of distinction amongst the voters. So elected officials have to be responsive to the constituents. They need to have the right checks and balances and structures in place to make sure that they're not going too far and certainly not violating the law.
By the way, let me open up the phone lines. If you have thoughts about the McDonnell case or any of the issues we're about to discuss here with D.C. Attorney General Karl Racine, I'd love to have you join the conversation. We'll have 2 segments in all. For some of you, the second half hour will be online. But if you're watching in the 11 o'clock hour, join the conversation, please. I would love to make you part of the mix at 703-387-1020. It's the number we've posted helpfully to the bottom of the screen. Please join us if you want to weigh in on whatever is on your mind today, and we'll go to the phones as your questions and comments come in. Is it part of your job now where if a member of the council, for example, an elected leader of the D.C. Council, has a question in this area, and I have a lot of sort of off-air conversations with politicians at all levels they're tracking this case closely, believe you me, I'm sure you know this. Is it part of your job to advise?
You know, in D.C., the council created a new body, that's the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability. BEGA, that is there, in fact, to address those kinds of issues. Also, the council, the OAG, and the mayor have ethics counselors who also are there to address issues. The beauty of the BEGA team is that once you raise an issue with BEGA and you get clearance from BEGA, you have safe harbor. So the better course, no doubt, for elected officials in the District of Columbia is that if it's a close call, go ahead and ask for advice, and whatever you do, follow the advice.
Let's get to the list of topics we want to discuss with you here today. There's a new push for D.C. statehood. Talk about a convention. Talk about actions beyond a potential gathering to make the 600, approaching 700,000 residents of the District of Columbia a group of people larger now than some states, equal citizens in every way, not second-class citizens in any way. How do you view this as a legal matter? Are we hitting all the gas pedal, are we sort of firing on all cylinders in terms of all the legal venues? And what do you think of the new push that's come about in the last couple of weeks?
Sure. Well, I credit Mayor Bowser and Chairman Mendelson. There's a person on Mayor Bowser's team who spent a lot of time researching the issues. Our senior counsel, Beverly Perry, really focused hard on this issue. And what I've seen so far is that the so-called Tennessee approach that we're pursuing is an approach that the District of Columbia first sought in 1982, renewed it again in 1987, and by focusing on a constitutional convention, drawing up a constitution, getting a referendum, if you will, to the voters in November, that, based on our limited review so far, seems to be perfectly appropriately legal. What I'd like to emphasize is that there's a lot of work to be done. The details have, not really yet been, sort of thoroughly vetted. But what's most important is that there's a commitment from the elected officials from the top, and certainly solidarity in the effort, solidarity amongst all the politicians with the advocates, and I think it'll be quite helpful to hear from D.C. voters as to what their views are on statehood.
Can you tell us about this Tennessee approach? I'm hearing it for the first time.
Sure. To make a long story short, what Tennessee did is that Tennessee went ahead and they drafted a constitution, had a constitutional convention.
When they were a territory?
Back when they were a territory. They initially sought to become a state, and as it turned out, Congress rejected them. And so they went forward with this Tennessee approach of a constitutional convention, drawing up a constitution, drawing boundaries, getting the public in Tennessee to support it, and then they proposed that Tennessee plan to the President of the United States and the Congress, and sure enough, 2/3 of the Congress voted them in. That's the approach that we're taking.
You're a lawyer first, the city's lawyer first, a politician second. Do you, wearing both of your hats, support this, and will you be sort of engaging at both levels? And I ask that because we're in the middle of a political campaign, and it's an opportunity to get the attention and maybe the commitments of people who will soon hold high office.
Absolutely. Well, I'm 100% on board with this plan, and the Office of Attorney General is at the ready to fully participate and assist Chairman Mendelson, the Commission, and Mayor Bowser. We think that the plan is in fact legal, so long as we go through the process in the right way, and we're here to guide in that process. And we agree that galvanizing support from D.C. residents right at the time of this coming election is a great opportunity, and frankly, as a Democrat, I'm certainly hopeful that we have a Democratic president and we have a Democratic Congress.
So if there are people listening to us who've been sort of on the sidelines, on the sofa, up till now on this crucial issue that couldn't be more core to our identity as a nation, this might be an excellent time to get involved anew for the first time.
That's exactly right. Now is the time to let the country know that taxation without representation, that a system that does not allow the District of Columbia to be the captain of its own ship is not only unconstitutional in terms of norms of fairness, but needs to be changed.
I have 60 seconds left for this segment. Is there going to be a $15 an hour minimum wage referendum on the ballot this fall?
I believe there will be. As you know, the Office of Attorney General intervened in a case in which the referendum for the $15 an hour wage was challenged. We're happy that once we got in, we were able to persuade the court that the initiative was valid, and it appears as though that initiative has a good chance of being on the ballot in November.
More of our conversation with and your phone calls for D.C. Attorney General Karl Racine. All of that coming next for most of you. Of course, video of half hour number 2 is online, always, along with a lot of other great video. Our blog is news8newstalk.com. We're back in a moment.